Good evening, everyone. Live from New York. It's the first Instagram Live episode of Wine with Wanda. Thank you so much for being here for this little experiment. Like many of you, all of us really should be social distancing during this pandemic. And I know we all miss our friends, our family, our loved ones, and those of us who love wine miss sharing a bottle with the people that we care about, whether it's at a tasting, at a dinner, or just sitting at home. So I wanted to recreate that experience. One of the great things that's happened during this time of being at home is that I've had so many wonderful conversations with friends on Zoom or WhatsApp, and we're often sharing a glass of wine. So I thought it would be fun to bring some of those conversations to you. Of course, we're going to talk about wine, but really it's about how wine brings people together. So for my first episode, I invited a very special person, Dave Eckert, who's on Instagram at Eats and Drinks with Dave, and I'm going to add him to the call now, and we're going to get started. Okay. Connect through the magic of Instagram technology. It says connect. Oh,
It works.
cool.
How about that?
Cool with the shades and everything.
Out here in the brilliant sunshine, it's a little nippy. It's about 60 degrees, but bright blue skies. And so I thought, what better to share a glass of wine with Wanda on her first episode outside, and I donned the shades just for you.
I love it. I love it. Well, Dave, we should let everyone know I'm in Manhattan. You're in Kansas City.
Well, Liberty, very close.
Liberty.
It's a suburb of Kansas City, about 20 minutes north and a little east of the city. But yeah, for all intents and purposes, Kansas City works for me.
Fabulous. Well, when I was thinking about doing this crazy experiment, I was like, who would be a great first guest? And Dave, no one could top you.
I am
You're
so honored. I am
passionate
really
about
honored.
food and wine. You know so much. You hosted and produced 275 episodes of Culinary Travels with Dave Eckert.
Yep. It ran for 11 seasons on PBS, and then it matriculated onto cable. I thought that was going to get me to retirement. Didn't quite reach the finish line.
Okay.
But having done 275 half-hour episodes, self-produced, self-funded, self-directed, self-written on 6 continents, I'll take that.
So yeah, I've noticed, I don't think really there's any major wine region that you haven't been to.
Not really. I would have enjoyed taking the show to Spain a bit more aggressively. I never did get to Rioja or Ribera del Duero. That would have been great, but I went everywhere in Italy. I went everywhere in France. I went everywhere down in South America. I've, of course, been domestically out to, Oregon, Washington, throughout California many times. So I really, really, really enjoyed my time with Culinary Travels.
That's wonderful. So before we jump into the conversation, like any good friends meeting for wine, we would do a toast, right?
Yes. I've got to pour my glass. I was waiting.
Okay, pour your glass. Pour your glass.
There you go. So, cheers.
Cheers, my friend. We both have rosé.
We do.
So tell me what's in your glass and show the bottle. Raise it up.
I'll show the bottle. Can you see the bottle?
You might want to raise it up a bit. It's cutting off because of the split screen. Bit more. There we go.
Okay. I can't see real well because of the sun.
Twist it a little so we see the front. The other way. There we go. Okay.
There we go. This is a Julia's Dazzle Rosé from Washington State. This is one of my favorite domestic rosés. Long Shadows family of vintners is the winery that produces this. They sourced this grapes. This is 2018. This is a Pinot Gris rosé, which I find kind of interesting and unique.
Oh, interesting.
And they source these grapes from a vineyard called Spring Creek. That's in the Yakima Valley. And it's just east of a vineyard that I visited last year called the De Brule Vineyard that's owned by Côte de Bonneville. A very talented French winemaker, Gilles Nicot, produces this wine. They describe it as off-dry. I don't really find there's a lot of sweetness there. I do get really ripe fruit, strawberries, raspberries, cherries. It's very bright and very, very springy and summery.
Wonderful.
And what are you drinking?
I am drinking Macari Rosé from the North Fork of Long Island. It's the
Mm,
2019 vintage. It's a blend of Malbec and Merlot,
there you go. That's an
which
interesting
I thought
blend.
was really interesting. Maybe it's because I can't travel. I love the idea of, you know, maybe paying a little bit more attention to our domestic wineries, and one
Absolutely.
really up the road practically in Long Island. So also a family-owned winery, juicy, fresh, full. This isn't a wimpy rosé. It has a lot of flavor and
Right.
body. A hint, it's fruity, but not sweet. It's definitely dry, but really a pleasant wine. So Macari, look for it. And we'll shout out the wines again at the end for people that
Absolutely.
are joining
And you know,
later.
that's a really good point, especially when it comes to rosé. The difference between fruity and sweet. I have
Exactly.
a lot of people who tell me I don't like sweet wines, and what they're referring to is just ripe fruit in a wine. And
Exactly.
I
It's a
always try to,
fine balance.
yeah, I always try to point out that sweet is when you have residual sugar and it leaves that taste in the back of your mouth. A fruity wine is fruity and lush and approachable and brimming with fruit, but it finishes dry. And that's the way I like my rosés. I like my rosés to have upfront fruit, but a nice dry finish. How about you?
Absolutely. You nailed it. You nailed it. Well, you know, Dave, I realize we've known each other for 5 years,
Yeah, amazing.
but we
And you
also
know what?
haven't
I,
seen
I
each
almost feel
other.
closer to you now, not having seen you in 5 years, than when we spent a week together 5 years ago in Tuscany,
Yes.
because
So,
we
you know,
interact so much on social media.
it's true. It's true. The 5 years have flown by. And again, a great example of wine bringing people together. But, you know, it's like, you know, as much as I follow Dave, one thing I don't know is what really ignited your passion for wine.
Wow, that's the $10 million question, right? I was in broadcast journalism and really didn't know very much about wine or care very much about wine, but
Okay.
got married, and my wife is an excellent cook. So that was really step number one, because I felt I needed to step up my adult beverage game if she was going to step up her cuisine. So
Got it.
started taking a couple classes here and there. At the time, I was in Pittsburgh, working at the ABC affiliate in Pittsburgh as an anchor and a reporter. We took a class on Bordeaux, and the guy was so passionate and so knowledgeable, I will never forget it. And I tasted a 1961 Bordeaux. I can't remember what it was. It was just a cru.
Okay.
It wasn't anything special. It wasn't a classified growth, but it was so much different and so much more expressive than anything I've ever tasted before. And man, I caught the bug. And that was
Wow.
about 1988. And
Okay.
from 88 until 98, when I started Culinary Travels with Dave Eckert, it was just, for me, it was all about all I could taste, all the folks I could meet, as much information as I could glean. I started hanging around wine shops. When I got to Chicago and worked at WGN, I was fortunate enough to meet a lot of the folks in the wine industry up there, a lot of great chefs like Rick Bayless and Sarah
Wow.
Stegner and Paul Bartolotta and Charlie Trotter. And it was just my thirst, pardon the pun, was unquenchable. I couldn't get enough information.
Yeah.
And then obviously when I started my show, that was the end. There was no
Yeah,
turning.
you've really, what I admire about you is that you've really had this hands-on approach, and you've really, in some ways, self-taught. You know,
Yes,
you've invested in this, you know, traveling, learning, networking, and going from being behind an anchor desk to now really navigating very successfully social media and these new platforms. It's not always easy to do, and you seem to be handling it quite well.
I don't know. Sometimes I feel like I'm not navigating them very well, but I'm doing the best I can. I have a buddy of mine here in town who he makes the best rum cakes on the planet. I'll have to get you hooked up
I
with him.
follow him, I
Do
believe.
you
Yes.
follow Craig Hancock? I mean,
Right.
it's just amazing.
Yeah.
And he also has a little business that he calls Table Ocho, where he cooks gourmet dinners for 8 people, hence Ocho.
Oh,
And he's about my age, and he said, you know, it's just trying to stay relevant these days.
yeah.
You have to stay relevant, up to date, informed. And I feel like, yeah, you know, I'm a bit on the elderly side with the white hair and everything. However, that also with that age lends a great deal of experience. And so I've
Exactly.
been to so many places and met so many people, and I really enjoy being the conduit for the information. I don't want the story to be about me. I really want the story to be about the people and the places and their products and passion.
True. And I think that's what I really appreciate about your writing. It really does transport you to that region, to that restaurant. And, you know, I've never been to Kansas City, and you've mentioned your friend. Can you tell us a little bit about the food and wine scene in Kansas City area?
Well, I can tell you what it was like before this. I don't
Okay.
know what it's going to be like after this.
Yeah, true.
We're all waiting to see. When we first moved here, my wife and I moved here in 1989. I took an anchor job at the ABC affiliate here in town. There were 3 good restaurants in the entire metro, and I kid you not. I mean, 3 legitimate gourmet dining restaurants. When we moved back in 2001, after having spent 8 years in Chicago, the scene had grown to, dozens. But over the past 5 to 10 years, it's exploded, as it has in many cities our size and a little bit larger. So many people are either moving here or moving back here. So they're originally from Missouri or Kansas, and they've been working in Chicago, or they've been working in San Francisco. And they come back to a much more affordable and a very eager and a very hungry audience for chef-driven, locally sourced cuisine. And now we have, I can honestly say, restaurants that are comparable to anything that I've experienced in any of the great cities: New York, Chicago, New Orleans, San Francisco, you name it. There aren't as many, but per capita, we're doing pretty well. So the emphasis has really gone from a very kind of chain-driven steak and potatoes type concept to very much chef-driven and, when possible, locally sourced ingredients. It's been very exciting to watch and be a part of.
And true, we can't ignore the fact, restaurant industry is suffering greatly because of the COVID-19 pandemic. As someone like me who loves to travel, how have you been coping with being at home and social distancing and not being able to go out there and do the thing that brings you so much joy and that you do so well?
Not well, Wanda, not well. In fact, I turned over to my wife today and I said, why am I tired all the time? I'm sleeping in, I'm staying up late, but I don't have the energy that I normally have.
Yeah.
Because normally I'm running all over town. I have this venture that I'm working with a friend of mine called the Casey Happy Hour, where we cover happy hour food and drinks around the metro. We post those on Instagram and Facebook. We do 1 or 2 of those a week. Running and doing interviews for articles. Hopefully lining up trips where I can go explore other regions. All of that's been stripped away. And I understand that's a first world problem. But it's still, when a huge chunk of your life is taken away, it's very, very difficult. So we're coping. When we talked earlier, I told you I'm trying to stay very active with writing because it keeps me engaged in the subject matter. I've written several articles on the impact on the restaurant industry and then related industries. And those have been very, very difficult articles to write because I know these people. I like these people. So, some of them I call personal friends. And it's difficult to write a story that touches you so personally. But I also think it's important because it's important to share those personal individual stories and let folks know that these are real people out here. This isn't just a business. It's 65 employees at that restaurant who are now out of a paycheck. And that's sad.
It's true. I've noticed another way that you probably have been coping is, in addition to your wife being a wonderful cook, from your Instagram page, you're cooking up a storm at home and it all looks really good.
I am. My wife would say I'm cooking too much, but it does keep me occupied. I've really gotten the soup bug for some reason. I've been
making a lot of soup as well.
It's so comforting, right?
It is comforting.
Plus you get to use leftovers. It's like, oh my God, I've got a half of a chicken left. What can I do? Or I bought 3 packages of frozen spinach. What am I going to do with those? So I made a recipe my wife found just the other day. It was for garlic, spinach, elbow macaroni soup. And
I saw that picture.
I'm not going to like that. And I made it, and oh my gosh, it was the most delicious soup I've had maybe ever. I don't know, it was just so good. And then another great thing that's come out of this, is I'm bartering. So I've got friends who are also great cooks. A good friend of mine is an executive chef at the Dining Experience at the Kaufman Center, which is kind of our Carnegie Hall. That's where all the symphony and the ballet and all the great shows come to the Kaufman Center. And she runs the restaurant there, which is a wonderful, wonderful restaurant. She is just leaving the post as Missouri Restaurateur of the Year, Missouri Chef of the Year for the Missouri Restaurant Association. She lives 10 minutes from me. Okay. She's also a trained pastry chef.
And what was her name?
Her name is Laura Comer.
Laura Comer, okay.
Laura Comer. So she'll bake bread or bake a cake, and I'll say, "Oh my God, that looks wonderful, Laura. How about a trade?" And I'll trade her soup for cinnamon bread, and then I'll make her a to-go cocktail and put it in a little Tupperware container for her to take home and pour over ice. You know, I traded Craig Adcock. I traded him some wine. He was doing smoked salmon, and I thought, that's wonderful. I'll get some smoked salmon that I can snack on. I'll trade you a couple bottles of wine. I traded another friend of mine pizza for wine.
I love it.
It's a pizza place downtown. So
Great
I brought down a couple bottles, brought him a couple pizzas. It works.
The other thing I've noticed often is when you have a meal, you're kind of put out there. What wine do you think pairs well with this? I would love to get some ideas from you on food and wine pairing. Seems to be something that sometimes I think people overthink it and get too intimidated.
I agree.
I would love to get your thoughts on food and wine pairing.
My basic rule is I don't have a rule, but beyond that, I like, rather than worry about what color wine or what style of wine should go with the meal, I generally go with the weight. So the weight of the wine, I think, should match the weight of the meal. In other words, I would not have a lighter Sauvignon Blanc with an Ossobuco. It's not about the flavors necessarily. It's about the weights that don't really match. So generally speaking, if you follow that rule, light with light, medium with medium, and heavy with heavy, probably going to be right about 75–80% of the time. And that's a pretty good starting point.
That is a very good idea.
And then beyond that, Wanda, the more, this is another thing leading to my age, the more you live, the more you eat, the more you experiment, the more you fail, and the more you succeed. So I've had many, many, many failures with trying to match the right wine and the right food, but I've had successes as well. And you build on those successes. It's like, I don't know, doing a Legos layout or something where you're laying the foundation and then you're building upon that.
Wonderful. So looking towards the future, when that will be, when things will be a new normal.
Yeah.
When we can go out again, what's the first thing you'd like to do in terms of food and wine? Is it a favorite restaurant? Is it a region?
I really want to get out and support some of my chef friends who I know have been suffering and who I've written about in some of my articles. I would love to dine in their restaurants first, right off the bat.
Absolutely.
Somebody asked me what I would do what's the first thing you do, and I'd say I want to go to a movie, and then I want to go out to dinner. Yeah. And I want to keep it really, really simple, but I want to make it really, really good. And then my wife said we just got some Loire Valley wines the other day, and included was a Sancerre and a Pouilly-Fumé.
Oh, nice.
I'm like, oh gosh, should we open one of those? And she's like, no, let's wait until this is over, and we'll get some fresh mussels, and we'll cook them up, and we'll have a really lovely celebratory bottle of wine. So that's something I want to do as well, but want to do here.
I love it. That's a great idea.
What do you do?
You know, I think the same as you. I really miss just going to my neighborhood wine bar and sharing a bottle with my friends and saying, oh, I'm popping in for one glass. And before you know it, you're there when the gate is going down because you've been laughing and talking.
I too have a favorite wine bar just south of downtown. It's only 12 minutes door to door from my house. And I've known the general manager, the wine director there for, oh gosh, almost 20 years.
Wow.
He used to tend bar at a restaurant up here, a little pizza place in our little suburb when he was kind of a pimple-faced teenager. Yeah. Now he's one of the most knowledgeable wine guys in the metro, maybe in the entire region. And I would love to go down and share a couple glasses of wine with him and just remember what it was like to sit in a place that you feel so comfortable at and sip a glass of wine.
True. I mean, the great thing about food and wine, I mean, it's a cliche, but there's room for all of us and it brings us together. We never would have met.
Absolutely. That's so true. And you find out you have more in common and less to divide you when you start talking and sharing wine and food.
Exactly. Really is a gateway to other great connections and just understanding of each other. So I wanted to play around a little bit, you know, with wine with Wanda. And I was like, you know what? It might be fun to give people an opportunity to whine about one thing that really bugs them. So this is your moment to air a pet peeve. It could be a food or wine trend that you're sick of, but this is just your moment to whine a little bit about something that's bugging you.
Okay. This is something that's bugged me for a long, long time. And while it has gotten better overall, it still persists. And that is Americans and American restaurants serve their white wines too cold and their red wines too warm. And
Yep.
that has bugged me forever. And it really bothers me when I challenge somebody in a restaurant, a waiter or even a sommelier, and I say, you know, this red wine is just too warm. And they say, well, it's supposed to be served at room temperature. And I'll say, yes, that's when the rooms were giant cavernous rooms at a castle with
Exactly.
bullhounds lying in front of an open fireplace, and the room was maybe 58 degrees.
Amen.
It's not 72. You know,
So true.
come on.
Well,
Somebody told me, I can't remember who it was. It might have been Doug Frost, but somebody told me we should, and he was saying to me, when you're going to serve a white wine, pull it out of the fridge 20 minutes before you serve it. And when you're going to serve a red wine, put it in the fridge 20 minutes before you're going to serve it.
Very good advice. I agree with you.
I think that's wonderful.
So everyone's asking what we're drinking. So if you could show your wine again and tell what it is before we sign off.
Okay, give me the clue. Is this
Yep,
good?
perfect.
Okay, yay.
Nailed
Okay, this is the Julia's Dazzle Rosé from Washington State. It's from Long Shadows Vintners. It's a Pinot Gris Rosé. It's named after the owner, Alan Shoup's granddaughter, Julia. And it's from a vineyard called Spring Creek, which is in the Yakima Valley. And it's kind of interesting. It's made by a French winemaker by the name of Gilles Nicot. And I really love it for its bright, racy fruit, bracing acidity. And it's just ripe, and it screams springtime to me. And
Perfect.
I think it's not only one of the most consistent rosés in Washington, I think it's one of the most consistent rosés domestically that I've tasted.
That's coming from you. Strong endorsement.
I drink a lot of rosé.
So for me, I'm drinking the Macari 2019 Rosé from the North Fork of Long Island. I'm a native New Yorker, so I wanted to show some love for New York wine. A blend of Malbec and Merlot. It's really juicy and full, but it has a dry finish. It's crisp. This is a wine that can hold up to a meal. You know, this is a really beautiful rosé. So the Macari family, love it.
Do they make red wines? Do they make a Merlot?
They do. They have a killer Cabernet Franc that they make.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, great portfolio of wines.
Nice. Nice. Long Shadows is a collection of 7 different ultra premium wineries, and the winemaking facilities in Walla Walla, which obviously specializes a lot in Rhone varietals, specifically Syrah. So they make a wide range of wines as well. But I also just love the bottle. I mean,
yeah, that's real. I've had that wine before. I agree with you. I was really impressed, and I love the name Julia's Dazzle.
Julia's Dazzle. Yeah, I had a wine named after me once, Dave's White Hair. It didn't work very well.
Oh my goodness. Well, Dave, I cannot thank you enough for being, first of all, my friend.
Oh no, that is my pleasure.
I appreciate you. I really do. Seeing you on Facebook, you're just always sharing information and so giving and so warm and so encouraging. And thank you for being my first guest.
Thank you, Wanda. And I hope you will reciprocate. I'm going to be starting Eats and Drinks with Dave very soon, and I would love to have you on, and we'll do this all again. But I'll be on the top square, and you'll be on the bottom square.
Exactly. So let's raise a glass and toast goodbye, my friend. Cheers.
Be safe.
You too. Stay safe, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for all the great comments. Bye, everyone. Good night. All right, I'm clicking end.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.